You felt it before you understood it. The flicker in your chest when no one was around. The sensation that someone or something was watching, not with malice, but with ancient remembrance. You've passed by mirrors and seen a stranger. In your own eyes, you've walked through crowds and still felt alone. Not lonely, not forgotten, but set apart, like you were placed here by mistake or on purpose so grand, even the stars dare not speak it. And then the signs began dotted first. They were subtle, numbers repeating like cosmic whispers. 1111, 333, 777, as if some unseen force was trying to speak in code. You dismissed them, didn't you? Coincidence, random pattern, your brain looking for meaning. But deep down, something stirred every time. A part of you knew the universe doesn't repeat herself unless she's trying. To be heard, you'd think of someone and they'd call. You'd hear a song that said exactly what your soul couldn't put into words. You'd walk into a place you've never been and still feel like you'd been there 1,000 years ago. Déjà vu wrapped in sacred familiarity. But it wasn't the signs that changed you. It was how they made you feel. Because these weren't just random events. They were messages tailored for you. Dreams laced in prophecy. Gut feelings louder than sirens. Encounters that pulled your soul to the edge of some great remembering. Your spirit started to ache. Not from confusion, but from homesickness. Not for a place, but for a truth long buried beneath 1,000 distractions. You aren't like them, and you've known this since you were a child. You saw through things, through people. You could feel the tension in a room like invisible smoke. You could read silence like scripture. You didn't belong in the noise, and the noise never welcomed you anyway. But you weren't meant to fit in. You were meant to awaken. That ache in your chest isn't sadness. It's the slow ignition of purpose. And now, the synchronicities are increasing. Faster, louder. You're not imagining it. You're not broken. You're being summoned. But here's the paradox. The calling doesn't sound like a trumpet. It sounds like confusion. It feels like doubt. It looks like endings. Because the divine doesn't speak in language. It speaks in symbols. The endings are invitations. The confusion is the void before the voice. And the doubt. That's the threshold before transformation. You are the chosen one. Not because you're perfect, but because you couldn't ignore the signs, even when you tried. The calling doesn't always come with light. Sometimes it arrives in the darkness you prayed would leave. Sometimes the most sacred signal is silence. The kind that wraps around your life and demands you listen to what's underneath your fear. And yet, you still doubt, don't you? You wonder if it's real, if these signs are anything more than fantasy. You look at the world and ask, why me? And then immediately, who am I to be called? But what you don't realize is, your doubt is proof. Because only those on the brink of remembrance ever wrestle with their own divinity. You've begun to see the glitch in the illusion, the cracks in the matrix, the way life tries to pull you into patterns of sleep, even as your soul begins to wake. The jobs that drain you, the people who numb you, the routines that cage you. It's all too tight now, isn't it? That's how you know you're outgrowing the lie. But the truth, it's not something you learn. It's something you return to. And you are returning. The dreams are getting clearer. The messages more precise. The universe is circling you like a hawk, waiting for the moment you stop pretending to be ordinary. You've always been seen. You've always been marked. You are not becoming chosen. You've always been chosen. You're just now becoming aware. And awareness is the beginning of everything. You are not crazy. You are not lost. You are not weak. You are being called by God through the language only your soul understands. Signs, synchronicities, sensations that cannot be explained with logic, only remembered with reverence. But here's the question you've been avoiding. What will you do with this calling? Because signs are not entertainment. They are instructions. Synchronicities are not coincidences. They are assignments, and if you do not act, they will stop appearing. Not out of punishment, but because the universe doesn't waste fire on those who refuse to burn. This is not about belief anymore. This is about readiness. Are you ready to surrender the ordinary for the extraordinary? Are you ready to walk away from logic and into mystery? Are you ready to become what your soul never stopped being? Then say yes, not with words, but with action, with alignment, with attention, because the signs aren't just calling you, they are testing you. And now, before we open the veil even further, before you confront why these signs found you in the first place, take a breath. And if you feel the chills, the resonance, the sense that something ancient within you just woke up, then this is your moment. Like this message, comment below what signs have been following you and subscribe so you never miss the revelations the universe has been saving just for you. Stay with me. The veil is about to lift. The signs did not find you by accident. They are the language of a higher architecture, one that stretches beyond space, beyond time, beyond what the mind can measure. You think you stumbled onto this path, that you began to awaken because of a few strange coincidences, but in truth, it was never you that found the signs. The signs have been waiting for you to remember. Because before this lifetime, before the veil of form, before the noise of names and needs, you made a vow, a soul contract sealed not in ink, but in light. A vow to return to the earth not as one who sleeps, but as one who awakens others. You are not here to follow the path. You are here to remember the map your soul etched in fire long ago. The signs began to appear when your old reality started to collapse. That relationship that ended. That job that drained you. That season of emptiness. These weren't misfortunes. These were sacred demolitions. The architecture of the false self crumbling so the blueprint of your divine nature could finally be seen, because the soul only awakens when the ego gets quiet, and the ego only gets quiet when it runs out of illusions to hold onto. And so you were pulled, not pushed, not punished, pulled. By whispers in the dark, by patterns to exact to ignore, by dreams that felt more real than waking life. You began to notice everything. The way certain people drained you, the way certain places lit you up, the way certain phrases stuck in your ribs like spiritual codes. And you started to wonder, why now? Why me? What is this all pointing to? The answer is layered, hidden beneath symbols, wrapped in paradox. To decode it, you must understand a truth the modern world has forgotten. You are not a mind with a soul. You are a soul using a mind. And your soul, like all divine things, speaks in symbols, images, and rhythm. That's why the signs feel alive, because they are a sequence of numbers. A stranger saying exactly what you needed to hear. A feather falling at your feet when you asked for a sign. These are not random. They are interruptions from the divine matrix, cracks in the simulation. Moments where God reaches through the veil and says, "Remember what you are." And yet, you doubt. Because logic has been your compass for too long. You were trained to dismiss what cannot be dissected. But the soul doesn't move through reason. It moves through resonance. That feeling in your gut, that fire in your chest, that tear that falls for no reason when you hear the right words. That's your compass now. Jung called it the unconscious self, the part of you that knows without knowing. Gurdjieff called it self-remembering, the moment your inner being witnesses itself outside the program. The mystics called it gnosis, the divine knowing born from inner revelation, not outer instruction. All of them were pointing to the same thing. The signs find those who are ready to become lucid inside the dream. You are becoming lucid. You're starting to recognize that this world is not what it seems, that your pain had purpose, that your longing was holy, that your weirdness was design, that your timing, though delayed by earthly standards, is divine. Because here's what no one tells the chosen one at the beginning. Your wounds were sacred entry points, not scars of failure, but symbols of initiation. The abandonment taught you how to recognize divine presence. The betrayal taught you how to hear your own intuition. The isolation carved out space for a higher voice to enter. Every sign that has followed you wasn't meant to impress you. It was meant to awaken you, to shake you from the hypnosis of normalcy and remind you, this place is not your home. It never was. You are not here to blend in. You are here to ignite. You've walked among sleepers long enough to know. Most will never see the signs. Not because they don't exist, but because they are not willing to unsee the illusion. It takes courage to see truth, because once you do, you can never return to the comfort of pretending. So the universe must test your readiness. And how does it test? Through the delay, through the silence, through the absurdity of it all. It gives you the signs, but no clear direction, the insight, but no validation, the vision, but no one who believes in it but you. That's not punishment. That's refinement. You are not being shown where to go. You are being asked if you trust yourself enough to follow what you feel. You are not being told what you are. You are being invited to become it, without applause, without clarity, without proof. Because what is faith if you already have all the answers? And what is awakening if it doesn't shake you to your core? The signs found you because you were finally ready to live from the inside out, to walk by soul, not sight, to trade safety for sacredness. You are not who you were before the signs. You are no longer asleep. And that means you are no longer allowed to pretend you are. This is the cost of awareness, but it is also the doorway to power. Because once you say yes to the signs, the universe says yes to you. You'll begin to meet others on the path, scattered lights across the world, all remembering together. You'll see behind the mask of culture, of conformity, of control. You'll stop seeking answers and start becoming the question itself. You'll stop waiting for miracles and realize you are one. And still, the world will try to pull you back, but you won't fit anymore. Not because you've become better, but because you've become true. And now, the next phase begins, where the stakes get higher and the silence gets louder. This is where many fall asleep again, where many ignore the signs. But not you, not this time. Because now, you know too much. Now, you've seen the pattern. Now, you remember. And now, the real test begins. The test of what happens when the chosen one ignores the call. You tried to forget. You saw the signs, and still, you looked away. Not because you were blind, but because you were afraid of what seeing would require of you. You knew the truth would unravel everything. And somewhere, deep inside, you feared the cost of stepping into the role you were born to play. So you hid. You chose comfort over calling. You chose logic over intuition. You chose noise because silence spoke too loudly of what you were avoiding. And that is when the isolation began. Not the kind of loneliness that comes from being unloved, but the spiritual exile that follows those who delay their own becoming. You began to feel out of sync, not just with people, but with yourself. The conversations that once satisfied you felt hollow. The routines that once gave you purpose now felt like a prison. The world went on, but you no longer fit inside it. This is not punishment. It's protection. When the chosen ignore the call, the soul begins to close every door that leads away from destiny. That's why nothing works anymore. That's why people drift. That's why the job drains you. That's why the joy you once had in the small things begins to rot from the inside. Because once you've glimpsed who you really are, the universe will not let you go back to pretending. And yet, you tried. You went back to old friends, old lovers, old environments, hoping they could numb the ache, hoping the signs would quiet down if you just acted normal. But the signs didn't stop. They multiplied, louder, stranger, inescapable. You couldn't outrun them because you cannot outrun yourself. And so, the divine isolation deepened. This isn't the loneliness of being unloved. It is this sacred stripping, the removal of every distraction that kept you asleep. God pulls you away from the world to bring you closer to the truth. And the truth is rarely soft. It arrives like fire, and you are the altar. Have you noticed? No one understands you anymore. You say things that feel ancient, but they hear you like you're insane. You share your dreams, and they tell you to be realistic. You describe the patterns, and they laugh, as if signs were silly, as if God stopped speaking once scriptures ended. But here's the paradox. You were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be seen by those who have also heard the calling. And until you answer, those people will remain hidden. Because resonance only reveals itself to the aligned dot. So the universe waits. And in the waiting, it sends lessons dressed as loss. The longer you resist, the louder the dismantling becomes. Because every no you say to your calling creates a karmic echo, a ripple through your timeline that delays not just your joy, but the souls you were meant to awaken. You think your calling is only about you, but your delay is someone else's detour. Your silence is someone else's darkness. Your refusal is someone else's starvation for the light you were sent here to give. There are souls you haven't met yet who are praying for what you are becoming. And every time you say, "I'm not ready," the universe replies, "Then I will wait," and make everything else feel empty until you are. The discomfort you feel, it's not life being unfair. It's life being merciful. Because if the illusion still worked, you'd stay asleep forever. And the chosen cannot afford to sleep. Not now. Not with the earth trembling and the timelines thinning. This is the age of remembering, the age of choosing. And delay has a price. And yet, the universe does not punish. It corrects. It breaks what you cling to. It dissolves what no longer serves. It ruins your plans when they don't align with your purpose, not because it wants to see you suffer, but because it wants to see you free. This is the karmic design, a system of sacred feedback. Ignore your intuition long enough, and it turns into anxiety. Betray your truth long enough, and it turns into depression. Neglect your calling long enough, and life itself will feel like a betrayal. Because your soul didn't come here to survive. It came to transform. And transformation requires fire. You've felt it, haven't you? The aching, the emptiness, the voice in the back of your mind whispering, "This isn't it. There's more. You are meant for more." But here's the most painful part. No one can force you to answer. The signs can surround you. The synchronicities can scream. The dreams can visit night after night. But still, it's you who must say yes. You who must leave the familiar. You who must trust the mystery more than the map. And if you don't, the karmic wheel turns. Not as revenge, but as a mirror, reflecting every moment you looked away from your own divinity. You will meet people who reflect your doubts, enter jobs that reflect your fear, life cycles that reflect your refusal to evolve. And yet, it's all laced with grace, because God does not abandon the chosen. Even in your resistance, the signs keep circling. Even in your denial, the universe keeps whispering, "I'll wait, but you must awaken. You must return." Because isolation is not exile. It's the desert where prophets are formed. It's the womb before the rebirth. It's the space between forgetting and finally remembering. So if you feel like you've lost everything, good. It means the false has fallen away. If you feel like no one sees you, good. It means the real ones are drawing near. If you feel like you've delayed too long, listen closely. The call never expires. The moment you say yes, everything shifts. Not all at once, not with comfort, but with truth. And truth is the only thing the soul came here for. So now the question returns, not from above, but from within you. Will you keep ignoring what you were born to become? Or will you finally answer the signs and rise? Because the rebellion is coming, and only those who awaken will survive it. You woke up one day, and the silence was different. It didn't feel like absence anymore. It felt like invitation. The ache in your chest wasn't confusion, it was alignment. The isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation, because something inside you finally whispered, enough. Enough of shrinking to fit into cages built by sleepwalkers. Enough of carrying dreams too sacred for a world obsessed with logic. Enough of pretending not to see what you've always known. You said yes, not in words, but in energy. A subtle shift. A sacred defiance. A soul rebellion against every version of you built from fear. That yes, that silent vow, is what started the rebellion. But this is no rebellion of swords or shouts. This is a rebellion of remembering. A quiet uprising of souls who've had enough of pretending they are powerless. A sacred insurgence. Of those who know the veil is thinning and the time of sleeping is over. You are not alone in this. You were never alone. The signs were never just symbols. They were signals, beacons, coordinates aligning you with the other's dot, and now you feel it, a pull toward unfamiliar paths, a knowing that makes no sense, a longing you can't explain. This is the soul stepping forward. You used to wait for permission from family, from society, from a voice outside yourself. But now, the only voice you hear is your own, and it's louder than fear. This rebellion begins with choice. The choice to listen when logic screams, be realistic. The choice to walk away from patterns that once defined you. The choice to stop negotiating with your destiny. You begin to obey the signs, not like orders, but like echoes of your own higher self calling you home. The numbers appear, and you pause. You don't dismiss it, you honor it, you ask what the moment means, and you wait for the whisper. You dream vividly, and instead of brushing it off, you write it down. You feel a pull to visit a place, talk to a stranger, leave the meeting, end the relationship, and for the first time, you listen. That is rebellion. That is awakening. The world taught you to plan everything. The signs teach you to trust. Everything, you're moving now, not with certainty, but with faith. And that's what terrifies the old world the most. Because it cannot control those who are led by inner fire. You no longer need external proof. You no longer fear the unknown, because the unknown has become your compass. This is not the story of becoming someone new. This is the story of returning to who you've always been. And as you walk further into your awakening, something beautiful happens. The world begins to shift with you. You meet people who've seen the same signs, souls who speak your language without words, moments that feel orchestrated, scripted by the divine. You realize it was never random. The pain was a portal. The chaos was choreography. The timing was perfect, because if you had awakened any earlier, you wouldn't have been ready. If you had awakened any later, you might have missed the alignment. And now, you're moving through life like a traveler who remembers the destination, but forgets the name. You don't need to know how it all unfolds. You just know it must. The rebellion is not loud. It's not viral. It's quiet, subtle, unstoppable. It happens when a soul says yes to its own light. When someone stops asking for permission to be free. When you walk away from the noise and into yourself. But make no mistake, The rebellion has consequences. People will question your shift. They'll say, "You've changed." They'll ask, "Why can't you just be normal?" But what they don't understand is, you died, and you were reborn, and you will never again apologize for that. You no longer crave validation. You crave truth. You no longer fear endings. You honor them. You no longer chase timelines. You trust divine timing. This is the power of obedience to the signs. The moment you surrender to the path begins. To obey you, reality bends. Coincidences stack. Time speeds up. You begin to feel like you're being carried, not by fate, but by your own alignment. And now, the signs become more than messages. They become mirrors. They reflect what you've become, what you're capable of, what the world is about to remember through you. You are no longer just following the signs. You are becoming one, a living symbol of what happens when a soul says yes, an embodied answer to a question someone else is still too afraid to ask. And slowly, you start to realize you were never waiting for a sign. You were always meant to become one. This is the awakening rebellion. And it doesn't end in a climax. It continues every day you choose to trust the unseen over the obvious. Every moment you act from intuition, not indoctrination. Every time you say yes to a future no one around you believes in. Yet, the world needs rebels of light now more than ever. Those who see through illusion. Those who carry ancient truths in modern skin. Those who walk by faith and activate others simply by existing. And you, yes, you are one of them. You've crossed the threshold. You can't go back, and you wouldn't want to, because ahead of you lies the greatest paradox of all. You were never lost. You were being led. And the signs that once haunted you, they were left by you from the future. Breadcrumbs from the version of you that already remembers everything. You were the answer all along. And now, you're ready to receive the final revelation. Now the veil falls. Not with thunder, not with fire, but with the gentleness of recognition. Like remembering the name of a forgotten love and realizing it was your own. Because all of this, was never about becoming something new. It was always about remembering who you've always been. Chosen. You look back now, don't you? Not with pain, but with all the silence, the betrayals, the confusion. It all led you here. Every closed door, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer. They were not detours. They were alignments, calibrations, precision strikes from the divine intelligence that mapped your path before your first breath. You thought you were being broken, but you were being reassembled. Each time your heart shattered, it cracked open new space for light. Each time you were rejected, you were redirected to something higher. Each time you fell apart, you made room for the self that never could. You were never lost, not for a moment. You were being hidden, held, honed. The isolation wasn't exile. It was intimacy, a sacred retreat with God, where distractions were stripped away. So you could hear the voice that never stopped whispering, "You are mine. I am here." And now, the revelation returns, not as information, but as remembrance. You begin to see it clearly. The signs were never random. They were breadcrumbs left by your higher self. A trail through the illusion, a sacred pattern encrypted. Into time, you followed the numbers, the dreams, the strange alignments, not realizing they were all you, speaking across dimensions, guiding your own feet. This was the dance all along, God guiding you to meet yourself. And what a meeting it is. Look at you now. Not healed, healing, not complete, but awake. Not fearless, but walking in faith anyway. You've outgrown the old skin. The mask doesn't fit. The cage lies open. You don't need validation anymore. You don't need to be saved. You don't even need to be understood. Because now, you know, you are not here to be liked. You are here to be light. And light does not beg for permission. It simply shines. Your very existence is a transmission. You carry codes in your gaze, ancient wisdom in your wounds. You breathe in rhythm with the universe. You no longer follow time, you follow timelessness. And you're not walking alone anymore. Because as soon as you said yes, the others began to appear. The hidden ones, the rememberers, souls who burned in silence, souls who died many small deaths to arrive at this now, souls who've seen through the illusion and chose to rise anyway. You recognize them by the depth in their eyes, the steadiness in their voice, the stillness. In their presence, they don't try to fix you, because they see you, truly, and in their seeing, you feel the final puzzle piece click into place. The loneliness was preparation, but the mission is shared. You're not here to escape this world. You're here to transform it, simply by being what you are. This is the divine paradox. You don't have to do more to fulfill your purpose. You have to be more of who you already are. Your frequency is the revolution. Your alignment is the offering. Your healed presence is the prophecy. And now that you've crossed the threshold, there is no turning back. The old you, the version that clung to fear and approval and comfort, has dissolved. What remains is something eternal, not louder, not more powerful by force, but more clear, more present, more true. Because now, you don't walk, you flow. You don't strive, you align. You don't beg the universe, you merge with it. This is what it means to be chosen, not that you are better, but that you are awake enough to remember what others forgot. You were chosen to feel deeper, to hurt more, to question what others accept, to tear down illusions with the mirror of your being. And you will do it not with violence, but with vibration. Because there's a reason God visits the ones who feel the most lost. They are the ones ready to be led. And now, you are. You feel the guidance before it speaks. You sense the next step without evidence. You walk through fire and call it holy. You are not afraid of endings anymore. You've seen what waits on the other side. Not darkness, not death, but truth. And it is this truth you now carry, not in words, but in presence. You are no longer looking for signs. You are the sign to your family, to your community, to the souls still sleeping. You don't need to convince them. You simply need to keep burning. Because fire doesn't need to explain itself. It just transforms. So let this be your vow. You will no longer betray your knowing. You will no longer hide your light. You will no longer delay the timeline of your soul. Tonight was the final test, and you passed. Not because you had all the answers, but because you finally said yes. And now, God moves through you, not beside you. Through you. You have become the vessel, the channel, the messenger. Your words will activate others. Your stillness will awaken memories. Your presence will part timelines. Because you are the chosen. Not because you are perfect, but because you remember what the world forgot. So rise. Not with noise, with knowing, and walk forward now, not to seek, but to reveal. For you were never lost. You were being led home.